Hello everyone, it's Meg and welcome to a sit down video. Oh my god, I genuinely cannot remember the last time I've done one of these. I think I did actually film like one or two beginning of last year and then they just, never made it to the final product of being a YouTube video. So I am doing this, and this is a video I have been wanting to do for ages, and you will already know by the title what this is. This is a part 2 of my historical fiction book recommendations. I did one quite a few years ago. I will leave it in the description if you want to go and watch that. And obviously, like I said, it's been quite a few years and I have a lot of books to include in this video, and I mean a lot because it has been that long. Maybe like, is it 2? Maybe 3 years, might be 3 years actually, or even 4, who knows. But yeah, I have a lot of books to recommend, and obviously if you guys are regular watching my channel, you know that historical fiction is probably my favourite genre, so it is just natural for me to do these videos, and I've been waiting to do it for so long, and I finally read enough books. Probably too many books to film to like include in this video, but we're gonna work with it. I have books across a lot of genres. You will probably see themes within the books that I'm recommending. A lot of them are very much feminist like historical fiction. That is very much the sort of fiction that I like to read. Some of these are from authors that I did talk about in my last video, but since that video has been so long, I'm just sharing with you their newest works. So I will do my best to go through these as quickly as possible. I've literally just pulled these books off my shelf. There is no planning. I have not read some of them in quite some time, so forgive me for not knowing like the full synopsis or anything like that, but this is just going to be a super fun, chilled video. It's sunny outside. It is kind of a bit on and off on the brightness, so apologies for that. And I've also got the window open because it actually feels like spring today, even though it's freezing outside. But besides the point, I will do my best to get through these books as quickly as possible. So if you would like to hear about some historical fiction books that you might like to pick up and read, then keep on watching. So I'm gonna try and do this in a bit of an order, not a massive order, but a little bit of an order. And I'm firstly gonna do different groups of authors, and the first author I'm going to do, because I want to get her out of the way, because you guys all know who this is going to be, and that is Laura Wood. I did include Laura in my last historical fiction recommendation video, but she has written 3 more books since then, technically 4, but her adult book is not out yet, and also it's a contemporary. So these are her new YA historical fiction, which have come out over the past couple of years, and they've definitely taken a bit of a turn, like that golden like 20s, early 30s era of her books we love, we stan. But these books are set in Victorian England, and they are very much more mystery novels. So we have a Single Thread of Moonlight, and then a duology. I don't know whether this is going to turn into like a series or anything, but we have The Agency for Scandal and The Season for Scandal, which I read very recently and absolutely adored. Hopefully I will have a vlog up before this video so you can go and watch and read my thoughts, or listen to my thoughts even, not read my thoughts. Even though these books are YA, I recommend them to everybody. I think they are such fun books. Obviously these books are more marketed as romance, however they are very much about these women trying to take back their power, discover their power, and I absolutely love that, and just, they want to find their way in the world. And these books are all interconnected. They are all set a few years apart. A Single Thread of Moonlight is about a main character called Iris, and this is kind of a Cinderella retelling, which is super fun. And then these 2 books are about a secret agency called the Avery, which is a agency run by women who right the wrongs of disgusting men and blackmails them and takes revenge on them, so then the women have the justice, and I absolutely adored that. They are absolutely just so fun. I cannot guess the mystery for these either. It was just a joy. So yes, if you are a beginner to historical fiction, I would recommend all of Laura's books, especially her backlog as well, because they are some of my faves. But absolutely adore these and obviously recommend. Next up we have Lex Croucher, and I discovered Lex when they brought out their first book, Reputation, a good couple of years ago now, maybe about 2-3 years ago, and I absolutely loved it. So I've read all of their books since. So they currently have one YA book which came out last year, which is Gwen and Arts Are Not in Love, which is a medieval historical fiction. Technically it's set in Camelot, which I don't think was actually real. I think this is kind of fantasy in that kind of realm. However, absolutely just a joy. I absolutely adored this book. And then obviously they have their adult novels, which is Reputation and Infamous, which is my personal favourite, and also Trouble, which came out last year. So Lex's, like I said, Lex's YA book is medieval, and the adult books are Regency, Georgian era, and these are just like I said, they are such a joy, these books. I love the characters. Their Regency adult novels are very much kind of Bridgerton-esque, so if you like that, you will probably love these. But I love how throughout all of their books they do have a lot of inclusivity when it comes to characters, which I really adore, and I will literally read everything that they write. They do have a new book coming out this year, which is a new YA book. I can't remember what it's called, but it's set during like the Sherwood Forest, like Robin Hood era. Absolutely love that. So I'm really intrigued to see what that is, and these are just really fun, easy reads as well, so highly recommend. Another author that I could have mentioned in my last recommendation video is Sarah Winman, because I didn't really realise, even though I've read all of their books, that they are historical fiction. So this is Still Life. This is Sarah's latest book. It's been out for a couple of years now. I've read it twice, absolutely adored it, and she also has some other books as well, a backlog which I recommend you go and check out because I also adore those. Sarah's books are the type of novels that you don't really know what you're getting into until you start to read them, and that is quite a beautiful thing about her books, I think. Number one, all you need to know is that they are beautifully written, absolutely stunning. They are generally books that take over a long period of time. So they take over, like this book takes over 4 decades, I think. And it starts during World War II, and I believe it finishes in like the 1960s, 70s, might be 70s actually. But yeah, her writing is stunning. She really looks at like the beauty of life and like the human connection, especially in this book, which is partly set in Italy and also partly set in London. And I just adore this book with all of my heart. I adore Sarah and her writing. I cannot wait for when she brings a new book out. So I definitely recommend giving her a go, and especially if you like stunning writing and books that take place over like somebody's lifetime, or like, you know, a good portion of their life, and seeing that character development. Next I'm going to go for some Greek mythology, which I would like to assume is historical fiction because it is part of history. These are actually my least favourite books, but I still want to recommend them, and I'm going to recommend them quickly because I know a lot of people really enjoy them. So that is Circe by Madeline Miller and Ariadne by Jennifer Saint. Like I said, these are 2 very popular books. You guys probably have seen them about for quite a while now. They are very well loved, and I love that for them, and I did read them. Like I said, they're just not my personal favourite. I don't think Greek mythology novels are my thing, unfortunately, which is a shame because I would love to love them. But again, if you have not picked them up, I still would recommend, especially because they are so well loved on BookTube. The rest of the books are going to be a little bit higgledy-piggledy. I tried to fit them into era, but a lot of them are from different eras, so we will see how this goes. So the next book that I have is The Illumination of Ursula Flight by Anna Marie Crowhurst, and I wanted to read this book for ages, and when I finally read it the other year, I absolutely fell in love, and now I need everybody else to read it. From what I can remember, this book is set in the 17th century, and it follows our main character Ursula from the day she was born up until around the age of 20, and it's basically just a journey of her life. You see her grow up in a small village to when she grows up into womanhood, and the expectations and pressures that are put on her, and how she doesn't want that at all. All she wants is to be a playwright and an actress. And this book is just so wonderful. It's also multimedia because you have the plays that Ursula has written in here, which is really fun to see. But this is an absolutely beautiful, stunning book of womanhood, of coming of age, of even in, you know, the 17th century, which was a long time ago, how women didn't want to be defined and they wanted to make their own way in the world, outside of marriage and all that sort of thing, out the stereotypical norm. I would honestly recommend this book to everybody. And a quote that was on the back of this that somebody, you know, from a review said, "Ursula Flight is the 17th century feminist hero for our post-Me Too times," which I think definitely sums this book up very well. So highly, highly recommend, especially this is the only book I think I have that's from the 17th century that I can think of. Highly recommend, honestly, you will not regret picking this book up. So the next book is The Mad Woman's Ball by Victoria Mass, and this is translated from French, and it is basically set in 1885 in Paris, and it is set in a psychological ward for women, and it's kind of based on true story. I don't know about the true story of the women. I think it's based generally on how women were treated in asylums back in that day, and the advances of medicine and all the disgusting male doctors. And it was set, and I think this book is set in based in a real place that existed in Paris. So this book is basically about this asylum in Paris. It is about the staff who work there, one of them in particular, and it is also about the women who were sent there. It's a very interesting book because you get to see these women on a daily basis who obviously live in this asylum, how they are treated by the doctors and the staff, how they are perceived by the outside world, because every year there is something called the Mad Woman's Ball where they dress up the patients in fine gowns and they parade them around in a ballroom where the public get to see and interact with them. It's just a very interesting look on that humanity, and especially obviously that kind of medical era, which still is to a certain extent apparent, where a lot of medical research is based on men, and like a lot how women are perceived differently in the medical world as a patient compared to obviously male patients, and the treatments that they are given and how misunderstood they are. And some of the things in here are horrific that the patients go through, but it is such a good read. Highly, highly recommend this book. Next we have an author that I also mentioned in my last video, which is My Fine Fellow by Jenicky Cohen. I still don't think I'm pronouncing her name right, I'm so sorry. But this is a gender-bending retelling of My Fair Lady, but it has cooking in it, which sounded amazing to me. And I did read this a couple of years ago. So this is set in 1830s England, and it's basically about our two main characters, two women, and they find this boy on the street and they basically try to build him up and like train him up, if you will, to become a well-known chef and compete in these different competitions. So our two main characters in this book are culinarians. I can't say that for some reason, which I unfortunately found out was fiction at the end of this. I thought it was true, like I thought quite a lot of the stuff in this book was like, you know, based on fact. However, a lot of it is not true, which is kind of sad really, because it would have been amazing if certain things in here were true. But besides that, I really enjoyed this and really enjoyed the characters. It also talks about the topic of how Jews were treated back then in the age, and obviously that still kind of relates to now. But it was a really enjoyable book. I love the feminist take on it. But yeah, another really fun book from this author. And I definitely will pick up more of her work in the future. Next we have The Winter Garden by Alexandra Bell, and this again was another stunner. Like I really enjoyed like 95% of all of these books. And again, this is set in Victorian England, and this is about a rivalry between two best friends to create two magical gardens, and if whoever wins will receive a wish. Obviously it is a very much a feminist book, and it is again about women who are going against the norm to carve out a path for themselves outside of marriage, of women taking back their power. And I love books that include things about plants. Obviously these are gardens, they're not just any garden by the way, they're magical gardens. I love the writing in here, I really love the characters. I especially love Beatrice, who is one of our main characters, and I am pretty sure she's like on the asexual aromantic spectrum. To me that's quite clear vibes from like early on in the book. But I don't know that for sure, that has not been confirmed from what I am aware of. And there are obviously some disgusting men in here who obviously, you know, we do not like, but these women are not afraid to take them down, and I love that about it. And this book is obviously about friendship, because it is two best friends and they are both fighting to win this wish, because there are things that they desperately want to know through gaining this wish. So it is definitely a magical realism book as well as a historical fiction, because there are some magical elements in it. But honestly, this is an absolute joy of a book as well, and highly recommend it. Next we have The Lady's Guide to Fortune Hunting by Sophie Irwin. This book is set in 1818, and it follows our main character Kitty, who is a little bit of financial trouble. So she basically goes to London for the season to try and find herself a wealthy husband to save her family and their house and her fortune. Obviously that doesn't quite go to plan, and this book is a lot of fun. I do actually have I don't know if it's a direct sequel or if it's a companion or whatever it is, but I do have Sophie's second book on my to be read shelf, so I'm definitely going to start that soon. This was just a fun historical fiction. This is a little bit Bridgerton-esque as well, and yeah, it was just a really fun book. I can't actually remember much about it, but I do remember that I enjoyed it, and if you kind of like I said, that Bridgerton-esque style, definitely recommend. Next up we have The Jane Austen Society by Natalie Jenner. This book takes place just after the Second World War, and it basically follows a group of characters who live in the town that Jane Austen used to live in, and they all are connected somehow. Obviously they live in, like I said, in a small village, so there is that connection, but they all love Jane Austen, and they all have it, like her books all mean different things to them, which is very special. And they basically try to save the house that Jane Austen used to live in, because it is going to be sold for whatever reason. But it was like, if you are a Jane Austen geek, you need to read this book. Like the discussions that they have about like the characters and the plots of Jane Austen's books is just so interesting. Like that's the bit that I loved. And again, this is a feminist book, and there is also some LGBTQ plus representation, which I love as well. But yeah, honestly, I adore this book, and if, like I said, if you are a huge Jane Austen fan, I definitely recommend this. I think if you don't know many of Jane Austen's works, you probably might not enjoy this as much, because it does go into some spoilery stuff about her novels, but otherwise highly recommend. And I do have her second book, which is Bloomsbury Girls, on my TBR shelf as well. And it is kind of a companion novel to this, because it follows one of the characters from this book, but when she's older, and I think it's set in the 1950s, so very much looking forward to reading that one as well. Next we have A Calamity in Mannerings by Joanna Nadine. This is a YA historical fiction. It is set in 1929, and it is about our main character called Panth, and it's about her family, and they live in this grand old crumbling house in a English village, and basically their father has passed away, and they figure out, like many people do in these books, that they do not have a lot of fortune, so they end up moving in with their grandmother. And this is very much like I Capture the Castle-esque to a certain extent. It's about this young woman who wants to go out in society and have fun. Obviously this is like that golden era of like the 1920s, where there's loads of parties and fashion and all that sort of thing, and she wants to go out and experience this. And it's basically, this is set in diary form in the year in the life of Panth, and you follow her mother, her grandmother and her siblings as well, Again, there is some different representation in here as well, which I love to see. And it was just generally like quite a fun book. It's very quirky. There is a lot of humour in it. Panther is a very charismatic character. She definitely fits in with the vibe of Cassandra from I Captured the Castle and Anne Shirley from Anne of Green Gables. She's very much that kind of character, you know, that very like extravagant, extroverted, creative and outgoing character. And I love those kind of characters. So again, this is a super fun read. Next is A Theatre for Dreamers by Polly Sampson. This is a book that I read a couple of years ago now, and it is set in 1960 off a Greek island of Hydra. And it's basically about our main character called Erica, who travels there with her boyfriend, and they meet all these other artists that live on this island, and it's basically about their time on this island, about the relationships between everybody, like who are the artists who are all living together, about the relationships with other islanders, relationships with themselves. And it is an interesting book. Again, this is probably one of my least favourite on this list, just personally. However, this does have very much like those like hot like summer vibes, you know, the ones where you feel like you are drenched in hot sun, like sitting by the beach reading, getting sunburnt. Like that is the vibe of this book. You can feel it just dripping with summer, and I love the atmosphere for that. It was absolutely gorgeous in that factor. But I love any books about artists, to be quite honest, especially if they're set in like, you know, islands and like foreign places. I think it's so fun. So yes, this is definitely a book if you want to read during summer. Definitely recommend this one. We are nearly there. I have 2 books left, and the next one I obviously had to include, which is Lessons in Chemistry by Bonnie Garmus. This book is just an absolute phenomenon. I read it about nearly 2 years ago now, and I loved it. This book is set in the 1950s and early 1960s about our main character called Elizabeth, who is a female chemist, and it basically takes over a period of her life, and she ends up becoming a TV cook on television. But obviously it's not quite as simple as that, and this really is very heavy on misogyny, and there is a lot of disgusting, horrible men in this book. There are also some really lovely men as well, but a lot of them are absolutely rancid. And it's basically about Elizabeth kind of going through these motions of how she became a chemist to how she became a TV chef. And it's obviously a very feminist book as well, because through her cooking show, Elizabeth empowers a lot of women. And it's such a beautiful book. It is quite hard to read sometimes, and there are content warnings for sexual assault and other familiar topics like that, so obviously be aware of that before going into it. But it is a really beautiful book about female friendship, about feminism, and just being a woman in a very male dominated industry. So I know quite a lot of you will have heard this book, but honestly, please pick it up, you will not regret it. It is an absolute stunner of a book, and I will always recommend it to everybody. We are on to our last book now, and that is a very popular one also, which is Cleopatra and Frankenstein by Coco Mellors. Now technically, I didn't realise this was historical fiction, but it does appear on the historical fiction display in Waterstones. And this book is set in 2007, so it's kind of wild to think that a book in 2007, when I was like 10, turning 11, I was starting high school in 2007. I find that kind of wild that that is historical fiction, or classed as a historical fiction now. Absolutely crazy. But obviously this is a very popular book, so I won't talk about it for too long. I'm sure you guys know what it's about by now. Obviously this book is about Cleo, who is in her 20s, and she's an artist living in New York, and she meets Frank on New Year's Eve, who owns his own advertising business, and he is in his early 40s. They get married, and it is basically about the fallout from their marriage and the people who are kind of drawn into it. I guess. I really love this book. I never had any intention of reading it. I didn't think I would like it, but I got it for £3 in a sale in Waterstones and I am so surprised. Honestly, this is my biggest surprise of last year. Genuinely think I would not like it, but I did, and I'm so glad that I did. And again, this is a book with a character who is an artist, and that is something, like I said, that I very much enjoy about in novels. So this was right up my street, and I loved the discussions on art, and I loved Cleo as a character, I liked Frank as a character. There was so much goodness in this book that I really enjoyed, and obviously it does tackle some very difficult and darker topics as well, so maybe look out for the trigger warnings before going into this book. But yes, I really enjoyed this book, and I do find it quite mad that it is in the historical fiction realm now. Yeah, that is a little bit scary to say the least. So we made it through all of those books. I feel like I didn't do too badly, since I do like to waffle from every now and again when it comes to describing books. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and maybe found a book that you would like to pick up and read from these. Like I said, I did enjoy all of these books and I do recommend them to everybody. I'd like to think that there is quite a variety of like eras that these books are set in, from obviously like medieval times up until 2007, which is still wild to me. So I hope that you have found something that you like, that you would like to read, and I hope that you enjoy it if you do decide to pick one up. Let me know in the comments a favourite historical fiction read of yours. I would always looking for more recommendations. I am a little bit skinny on them at the moment. I think I've only got 2 historical fiction books on my TBR, so I definitely need some more. So let me know in the comments your favourite books, and I will leave my Bookstagram and my Goodreads in the description if you guys would like to go and check them out and follow me on there on my reading progress and other content that you will not find on here. But thank you guys so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this video, and hopefully I will see you again very soon. Bye!